works. We're also going with my favorite hollowing tool, which was this guy here. I really like the long narrowed edge because it allows me to go into deep and narrow spaces. So it's really convenient, super helpful, and it's about 3 years old and it has seen some things. It's gone through a lot. Really quick, we'll just go through some more CM tools. They're kind of my go-to right now, especially since I'm doing a lot of carving and a lot of sort of intricate detailing work, and CM is really, really good for those kind of tools. So the classic, you guys know this, my little, my tiny carver, which is perfect for little guys like this because he's little, we've got tiny little buildings here, so I'm gonna need this little dude to really get in there and make sure those walls are consistent. We have, everyone knows what a pin tool is. This is our pin tool, very basic. I like the full metal pieces. These ones aren't my favorite because I find the needle breaks off quickly. So if there are any other sculptors out there, I don't have an example here, but the ones that are really nice have like one solid piece of metal. Like this guy, who is my other favorite tool, it's another CM. It's a double-edged tapered tool. And it's a full piece of metal. So it's not gonna break, it's not gonna bend, well it bends a little bit, but it's not gonna snap off, which is really convenient. And obviously the very important wire tool, which we're gonna use to chop off this guy's head right here, right across the neck. So if we remember from last time, we're gonna go ahead and get started on our sectioning. So it really depends on what your piece looks like, what kind of appendages it has. For this demonstration, just like the last one, I kept it relatively uniform. It's a pretty simple piece. There's not a lot of arms or legs or anything, so we can kind of just go ahead and dig in. So what we do is start with some sectioning. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw some guiding lines all the way up. And then we'll spin them around, and then we'll do the same thing. Just so I know when I reattach it, I know where to reattach. And then I'm thinking we're gonna section from the top, the middle, the base a little bit, and then I'm gonna flip it over, and then we're gonna hollow out the base. And I haven't decided if I'm going to individually hollow out all those buildings or just perforate. So stab them a bunch so they have some breathing, so they're not gonna explode in the kiln. So, all right, what do you think? Right here? It's a good spot. I like it. It's a good spot. Okay, so to keep it level, I'm gonna brace my wrist, hold my hand perpendicular to the table, and then I'm gonna slowly turn the piece all the way around, making sure I have a consistent line. And the piece wasn't exactly centered, so I'm not gonna get a consistent line right away. But that's good enough. That's good for section 1. And we're gonna label it section 1 because it's really easy to lose what pieces you work on and how to reassemble because the pieces often don't go back together like they should. And it's really annoying. So, actually, we're gonna section the whole thing. So we started up here, we're gonna start with another line down here. Let's see if I can just do this by watching the camera. Yeah. Almost close. I was off by like an inch. Whoop. Excellent. Okay. So we're going for section 3, which is down here. I'm actually going to pay attention this time because the last one didn't work out too great. So we're sectioning our third piece. And if you're just joining me, I'm doing a 24-hour, 24-artist live presentation by OpenArts MERGE in South Korea in Busan. Thank you so much for the opportunity again for having me and for having the rest of the international artists during this time. I know it's not easy to be able to be an artist during this time. It's really difficult, especially with the lack of exhibitions and being able to see art in person. So Really appreciate this opportunity, so thank you very much. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and chop this guy's head off, but we're gonna chop it off right above, right there. You ready? This part's stressful. Okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're gonna cut off your head. Bye-bye. Let's see what your brains look like. Ah, there's piece number one. So we have a hole on the inside because when I was sculpting it, I was building around a supportive base. So I'll show you what that looks like. One of these guys. So you build from the base, and then the pole in the center keeps it stable, especially if you're doing something that's tall and narrow and needs a little bit of support for balance. This works out really well. It's really easy to make, a piece of wood, go to Home Depot or whatever construction store you have, and just get some pieces and you can just attach it with some hardware. Super simple. Hi Ninja, thanks for coming to see me. I can't see what you're saying because I'm not wearing my glasses, so... Oh no, wait, I prepared for that. Hold on. Okay, Julian says, hi, it's your... I'm not reading any more comments from Ninja because it's distracting. He's also my sibling, so he doesn't need my attention. Okay, so we're getting ready to section the second part. So that's right under the head here. We're gonna align it. And the last piece was a little bit difficult to pull through because I think I let it dry a little bit longer than it should. Typically this should be about leather hard. It's a little bit harder than that right now, but it's not a huge deal because you can always just keep carving and resaturate. Leather hard is a better consistency because it's strong enough to hold it together while you hollow, but it's also soft enough to still dig out what you need on the inside. Okay, you ready? This is piece number 2. Ah! I'm already off the grid line. Look at that, I'm making a mess. Okay, and go. Cut number 2. Here he is, there's piece number 2, ready? I have too much fun with this and then I forget that I'm doing it live and international, and this is probably going to be something that I regret. But this is so cute. Look how his little face is all separated. Isn't that fun? He kind of looks like the old tree from Pocahontas. You know, that old willow tree? Except this is a lot scarier. Scary indeed. Who said that? Oh, yeah, I agree. Scary business. It's stressful. Okay, so he's gonna go over here along with his little hat. He's got a little hat here. And then we're moving on to our last section. So we're gonna go ahead and cut that. And that last process worked really well, so we're gonna go with that again. So lining up on our guiding lines. And then if you have a wire, you can get wires in different lengths. This wire I think is only 13 inches, but it does the job for smaller pieces. So I like ones that where both handles can reach around the whole piece and I can pull with one hand and support with the other. So we're gonna go ahead and cut the third piece. And this is why it's important not to make your work super precious, because especially in the hollowing period or the hollowing process, it really, it changes things and it's scary, especially when you work so long on a sculpture and you become attached to that aesthetic. It's difficult to then go in and chop it up, right? You don't want to cut up a piece you just finished making. But you can't put a piece like this solid in the kiln. You ready? You can't put a solid piece like this in the kiln because it will explode. There's a lot of water that's still in here, unless you left it out for a couple weeks for it to totally dry and for that water to evaporate. This water, once it reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit, that's boiling temperature and it's going to explode in the kiln. So that's why we hollow, that's why we section, and that's why we cut out the interior. So he's gonna go over there with the rest of his friends. And now we just have the base, which is pretty solid. And the bottom looks like this. Now it's a lot lighter and I can pick it up and show you the base. So I've just been adding on as I go because I know I'm gonna be hollowing later. So this is that example. And I think we're gonna start hollowing from up here. I don't really think I want to cut another section because there's so much detail. I'll show you a little bit closer. There's a lot of detail going on in the sort of city, the architecture that's surrounding it. So there's little houses, there's tiny stairwells, and if I were to go ahead and cut another line here, it's doable, but I would be interfering quite a bit with the rest of the architecture. And since there's tiny little windows and really delicate little details, that'll be a lot of extra work to try and reassemble when I can really just do it. Flipping it upside down and then hollowing from there. Oh, my camera is being silly. Sorry. Okay, we're good. We good? We're not good. Okay, we're good. Okay, so we've sectioned our pieces, which is kind of one of my favorite parts. It's really satisfying to kind of chop off the heads of your sculptures, especially if I know I'm putting it back together again. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so the next part in the hollowing process is you want to start by creating a guiding line. So the shape of whatever your hollowing is going to be your border. So I'm going to do a guiding line. I'm going to draw a guiding line around the circumference, just so I know not to go beyond this wall. The walls of the sculpture need to be consistent. If there's different thicknesses throughout the sculpture, it leads to warping and it puts stress on the structural integrity of the piece. So it's really important that when you hollow, all the walls of your piece are a very consistent thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself about 1/2 inch space and just go around and carve or draw a line of where my barrier is going to be. Comme ça. So I'm going to be carving on the inside, and this is going to be the thickness of the walls of all the pieces that go back together. And my favorite tool for this part that I explained earlier is my tiny little sculptor, my little circle guy. So he's going to be the one that does the initial trench dig or the initial border cut. So I'm just going to go all the way around and pull out that clay so I have an edge to start with. Comes up like this. And all the clay that comes out of the sculpture is reconstituted, it's reused, it's recycled. And I use it for future sculptures. So nothing goes to waste here. Okay. So the guiding line has been finished. We dug out a trench, and now I can go ahead and dig out the rest of the base. This piece is going to take a little bit longer, so I'm going to put this one aside. And we're going to hollow, I think, we'll start from the top down. So the very top piece was his head. I'll kind of reassemble him so you can see. And it's good to cut in straight flat lines if you can, because it's a lot easier to rest your pieces on a flat surface. You can also just use fabric or sponges and lay it on that, and it's not that big of a deal, but I like to cut straight lines so I can work on a flat, hard surface, and it's a bit more sturdy. So this is what he looks like. We're going to hollow out this piece, and then we're going to hollow out this piece, and then this guy. So first we start with, oops, that's upside down. So we're going to start with this piece. And this piece is a little trickier to hollow because it's so small and it's dome shaped. So anything that has an arch, you really have to make sure that if you're able to hold it and carve at the same time, because if you can feel or use your hand as a reference on the opposite side, it's really helpful because then you can actually feel the thickness from the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that border wall again. So we're just going to draw that line around the outside, making sure I'm giving myself a consistent wall thickness. like this. Done and done. And then we take my tiny little circle tool and we're just going to carve out that trench. I don't know if anyone that's on my feed right now is also watching the 24-hour, 24 performances with OpenArts MERGE. Fantastic. Really amazing stuff. I've seen some really cool performances. And I know it's like 4 in the morning or something crazy in Korea right now, so only the diehards are watching, or those who have to run the tech, which I'm appreciative for. Thank you for being there, and thank you for hosting me. But the performances that I've seen so far have been really astounding. I especially really like the VR one. She was walking around with this cool VR headset and some really cool landscapes she was showing off. There was another performance, I think there was music playing and there was like bicycle wheel shadows going across the wall. It was really cool. And the sound was fascinating. So there's been some really cool demonstrations happening. And I'm honored to be one of them. Okay, move this guy. So this is what it looks so far. We're still carving. It takes a while. Oh, especially if you only use this. So that's a problem I have. If I start hollowing, I will only use this one tool because I totally forget I have bigger ones and I'm totally zenned out and I'm just focusing on what I'm doing, that I forget I have a bigger tool and this can go a lot faster because this guy takes out a lot more clay than the other one. So with this kind of stuff, you can just use like you're peeling an apple. So I hook it with my thumb and I kind of just go around the core, paying attention to the thickness and paying attention to keeping the shape as much as you can. Any sort of bend or warp in the structure of the clay, it will remember that and it will warp back into that position. So while you're hollowing, you really want to make sure that nothing on the outside is really being moved. You're not manipulating the shape or the husk of the piece, especially because you have to put it back together, and when those lines don't realign, that again puts pressure on the seams and pressure on the rest of the piece, and that causes warping. So I'm not going to get too crazy thin. I don't plan on shipping this piece anywhere. So I'm not going to go really, really thin like I normally would if I was sending it somewhere, because weight adds up. Holy man, I am jealous of photographers and printmakers. Oh my gosh, you guys can access so many shows so quickly. And it's really beautiful. It's amazing. I love that two-dimensional artists have that privilege. It's really, really cool. It's a little tricky for the sculpture artists because our stuff is heavy. And they keep saying I should have been a poet, but here we are. I like playing with mud. So we've carved it out as much as I can. The consistency is relatively the same around it, but just to make sure there's no leftover air holes in here, I'm going to take a pin tool and I'm going to stab it. We're going to do what's called perforating. So I'm really just putting a bunch of tiny little holes in here just in case there happens to be a tiny little air pocket that I missed. And I use processed and wedged clay, so there shouldn't be a lot, but you can never guarantee that. So this is what we do to mitigate that process. So I'm stabbing all the holes, and that helps air dry it out too. So it allows air to access the interior of the clay body, and then the water can evaporate faster and more consistently. So that piece is done. Now we're moving on to his face. Look at the little face. Look how cute he is. He's so cute. That's the face he makes. It's great. I love it. Okay, so the base isn't totally flat. It's not perfectly even. So we're going to go ahead and just put some cushion, or just some plastic I have lying around, I always have plastic laying around, especially when you're a ceramic artist. It's really important to have plastic. And I reuse shopping bags. I use plastic grocery bags. They're really helpful for small pieces. And it's upcycling. So, okay, step 1, border line. So we're going to go ahead and do that border line. Same, about 1/2 inch all the way around. And then we're going to do the same on the bottom. So we're going to flip it, and I'm going to do the same thing. So continuing that border line. Consistent, 1/2 inch, and wherever the clay divots, you want to follow it. So as an example, my clay divots right here, it goes in. So the line I want to make is consistent with that border. So you're going to go up and around, making sure that your distance is the same. Deep cuts like that can often weaken the piece, so it's really important to make sure that you're consistent the whole way through. Okay, now we're ready to cut. Again, going with our small tool, creating that border line. And the reason why I do this is I prefer to start as clean and precise as I can, because once I go in with a larger tool that's really just used for digging, I lose a lot of my sort of finesse. It doesn't turn as easily. It's great for large pieces of clay and digging out large amounts. It's not great for detailed work. So that's why I use this guy. Oh, hi Santiago. Good to see you, buddy. So we use the little guy for the border line. And then sometimes I'll even just carve a little bit more just to give my bigger tool a little bit more space. So we're just going to do a second line. Good. So now we can go in with the bigger tool and really start hacking out some larger pieces. So again, if you're just joining us, I'm doing a, excuse me, 24-hour, 24 artists live performance with OpenArts MERGE in Busan, South Korea. And I think it's like early morning there. It's pretty early, I think. But it works for me because it's the perfect time for Canada, because it's only 4 o'clock. So granted, I would do it at any time of day. Where did my tool go? Got it. Okay. So we're going to go in and just dig out the bigger pieces, and I just toss them aside. Get out of here, clay. Of course, I reconstitute and I reuse it, but for the thrill of the video, I dramatically toss it aside because it's more fun that way. See? And then people question my use of materials. You're wasting clay. Don't worry, folks. I reuse it all. But see how much faster this tool is? This guy, I'm already halfway through. This guy would take me years. And sometimes I forget, and then it does take me years. Okay, so this is a really good example of when you penetrate the wall, which you're not supposed to do because I was not paying attention to the wall consistency. So we have a little bit of, oh, you can't really see, but there's just a little bit of pull through, so you can see through the piece. And this part of the piece is not necessarily supposed to be see-through. So I'm going to excavate the rest of that section, make sure it's all even and consistent, and then I'm going to patch it. But we'll do that later because patching is boring. We're just going to keep digging. And look at the rest of it. Oh, thanks, Santiago. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to see you, buddy. Okay, so we're still cutting. The clay's hard, so that's why I'm using my fist. Usually I like to be a little bit more specific with my cuts, but I let it dry out a little bit too much, and so it's a little too hard, but it's okay, it's still workable. So again, keeping the hand on the outside of that piece and make sure you maintain the consistency within the walls. I can't stress that enough. There's nothing worse than hollowing out a sculpture and having wonky walls, and then you fire it and the thinner pieces will buckle, and so the whole piece that's supposed to look like this will end up looking like this, and is no bueno. I don't speak Spanish, but that's the only thing I can't say, and I love saying it. I hope that's okay. All right, so we're moving lighter right along. Take this guy out, right down to the bottom. Okay, so he's mostly hollowed out. That's his face. His face is so cute. And then we are going to flip it upside down again and start on the other side. So that preliminary wall, I apologize if this is repetitive, but I find if I don't repeat myself, then I lose track of what I'm doing. And then we end up with something else, and I make terrible, terrible mistakes. But so far, so good. And if anyone knows any really good jokes, feel free to toss them up. I heard a really good joke the other day. It's really bad. What was it? There's a piece of string walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "I'm sorry, we don't serve string here." So the piece of string goes back outside, all disappointed, and he turns himself into a knot. He goes into a tizzy, and then he gets all tangled, and then he shakes out his head and like undoes the head part of his string, or so. I'm butchering this joke. Anyway, he goes back into the bar, looking totally different, orders his drink at the bar, and the bartender says, "Weren't you just in here earlier? We don't serve string. Was that you?" And he goes, "I'm afraid not." Boom. I love it. I love that joke. It's a dad joke, for sure. I don't think my dad told me that joke, but it's a good one. I like it. I'm doing it again. I'm using that tool when I don't need to. So we're gonna upgrade to this guy because he's big. And I have this weird thing where I kind of gender all my tools. I got some ladies. They're all my pin tools are my ladies. And all my big chubby guys that do all the digging, those are my boys. So watching that consistency and making sure not to press down while you carve, because the more you push downward, the more you warp the base of the piece. So it's really important that you're not pushing on the piece while you work. It's really helpful to sort of have it elevated, have it cushioned at the bottom, and just take out small cuts while you can. Really try and avoid getting out as much as you can in one stroke, because that's going to put pressure on the piece in some areas that are weaker, and it's going to jeopardize the structural integrity. So we're doing small strokes and digging until I reach the access point of where we started. Again, I'm not going pretty, just doing a really basic hollow, and then we're going to perforate. So this is what it looks like so far. So we have to clear out some of this business here. Hi Taylor, good to see you, dude. Thanks for tuning in. So this area here, this is all junk, that can go. This stuff here, it's a little bit too thick, that can go. But from this side, it's pretty good. So we're gonna stay on this side and hollow, and we're just gonna finish up this piece. And then it'll be nice and light, and it'll be easy to reassemble. I'm actually gonna skip the hollowing of the base because I really wanna do a reassembling demo with you guys really quick. Doesn't take long, it's really easy, and it's fun to do. At least I think so. I think it's really satisfying. Disappearing your seams is a finesse, I think. All right, almost done. This plastic is just in the way now, so we're gonna say bye plastic, bye plastic. Okay, so it's a lot cleaner. Hollowed out. This guy, he's pretty happy. Oh, he's not happy. He's not a happy sculpture, but he's pretty upset about getting his guts taken out. Sorry, just have a question, and I'm not wearing my glasses. I have to put those on so I can read things. What's another ceramics? What's another name for ceramics? Oh, it's Matt. Hi, Matt. I didn't even notice that was you. Hey, buddy. I don't know what you're asking me. What's another name for ceramics? I don't know. Clay? Sculpture? Are you asking what the name of this clay is? Because it's Coffee by Plainsman. It's a Plainsman coffee clay. Really, really groggy. Oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna go through what kind of clay I was using. Thank you, Matt. I'm gonna do that now. It's a Plainsman clay. It's got a lot of grog in it. Oh, what's the name for Masters in Ceramics? MFA, yes. What's another name for a Master's in Ceramics? It's called an MFA. Yes, good question. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Matt says it's awesome. You're awesome, Matt. Everyone should check out Matthew's page because he's an incredible artist. Really, really, really talented sculptural artist. And his thesis show was the bomb. He does really large figure work and it's super impressive. And we both did the same undergrad. We went to this undergrad in the same school, which is super cool. Right, this guy is hollowed. So after the hollowing is the perforating. Stabby, stabby. So we're gonna go in and I'm just gonna start perforating all along the base, making sure I'm getting out all of those air holes. And for those who don't know me, I'm sorry, I totally didn't even introduce myself at the beginning of this demo. I'm sorry. My name's Katie. I'm from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. I did my undergrad at Lakehead University, also where Matt is from. Hi, Matt. And then after that, well, first I got my degree in graphic design. Realized I could not keep up in the graphic design world. Holy man, does that place move fast. So I went into undergrad and started working with ceramics, super fell in love, decided it was my major, and then once I graduated, I decided I wanted to keep going. So then I got my master's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the United States. Really, really great program. It was super fun. 3 years, so it was a long time, but it was super worth it. And now I have a master's. 2 years later, here I am doing demos. So this one's done. We're going to put his hat on. And this is why we do guiding lines, because when you reassemble, it's like putting back a puzzle that just wants to make you cry. So, okay, so our guiding lines say it should look like that. Yeah. So there he is. That's his hat. We're gonna put that back on. We're actually gonna go ahead and attach this right away because it's drying out quite a bit and I just want these seams worked in before they dry out too much. Which is good because now I'm showing you guys a assembling process. So if you're wondering why I took out this guy, this is what this guy is for. Scratch and attach. You really want to scratch up your clay, get it nice and loose, get it wet, make a slip out of it. You're essentially making a glue for the clay. Matt, whenever you say things, I have to go sideways. But that's okay. You're saying MS? I can't read what you're saying, dude. Acid hydration management. Good luck unloading the kiln, Taylor. Bye. Thanks for tuning in, dude. It's good to see you. Say hi to everyone for me, okay? I miss everybody. Taylor is currently also an artist, also an amazing artist in Milwaukee. He does a lot of throwing. He's really good at it. Okay, so we are attaching. We're going to reassemble the hat to this guy. I noticed that there's no brains inside. That's me. No brains. Hollow. Just kidding. I'm a genius. Also, just kidding, I'm not. Well, Brian tuned in. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. Happy belated birthday. You're 1,000,000 years old now. So what I'm doing is I'm scratching the seam. So whatever is going to be attached to this piece here needs to be scratched and watered down so it becomes sort of a slip, which is also a kind of glue that you use to attach ceramic pieces together. So I'm just going to keep scratching this guy up. And a lot of beginners, when they start with ceramics, they kind of just do the really sort of light scratch and attach. But you really want to get in there and loosen up that clay. Make sure your cuts are nice and deep. But you also want to go over again and again and again, making sure that you're not A, inserting air holes, and B, consistently loosening up the seams so they attach properly. So I'll usually do a few rounds. I'll scratch it up about 2 or 3 times, just making sure it's nice and gooey. Look at that. Yeah, it's gooey. Okay. Yeah, so that one's done, but we can't just do one side. So when you're attaching ceramics, you have to make sure it's 2 pieces attached. So we're going to go ahead, after this one is done, we're going to start scratching up this guy because we're going to attach that piece to here, and both seams need to have slip on them. And they call this method scratch and attach. It's easy to remember, it rhymes, super fun. And again, my favorite scratching tool is this guy, CM Tools. Super great, super sharp, retractable. Make sure you clean it off when you're done because they rust. And I've gone through so many tools from not cleaning because I was lazy. And then the next day when I come in, they're super rusted. And it sucks. Because then I get rust pieces falling into my sculptures and it's a big old mess. This guy's almost done. I'm just scratching up the top of his head, making sure there's water in there. I'm just going to take a brush and I'm going to add an extra layer of water just to try and loosen it up a little bit because I did wait a little bit too long to hollow it out. You're really supposed to do it at leather hard, and this is probably about 1 stage beyond leather hard. So I got to break the clay back down again to a sort of muddy form that is going to allow a really nice connection between pieces. So I'm going to paint this guy up really quick, just loosen up that clay body. And again, this is a Plainsman coffee. It's really groggy, it's got lots of sand in it, so it's really easy to sculpt with, and it fires a really beautiful deep black. So again, using our guiding lines, we're gonna go ahead and reattach this piece. Oh, see, this is why we do guiding lines. I was gonna put it on backwards. Excellent. And since this is such a small piece that I was hollowing, it did sort of warp as I was working on it. I can feel as I carve, it does sort of like flex the outside. So you can tell it doesn't quite fit as nice as when I cut it in the first place. So that's okay. You can totally just work it back in. And that's what I'm gonna have to do is sort of really gingerly work those seams together without warping the structure of the piece. So we're gonna go back to our plastic for something that cushions the bottom because I have to do a little bit of pressing just to get those seams fitting nicely. There we go, that's better. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and press these seams together. Not too hard so I'm warping the bottom piece because that still needs to attach to a secondary piece when you saw when I was hollowing it. So we're just gonna fit it on, make sure everything is in its place. Make sure there's a nice tight connection. So I'm just gonna go around the whole thing and with my thumb just sort of convince the clay downward back into its seam. Again, trying not to manipulate the structure because the rest of the pieces rely on it. Okay, so he's on. he has his head back on, but you can tell there's a seam. And sometimes it's really difficult to get rid of these seams when the clay is too dry. So that's why I really want to stress the consistency of your clay is important when you're reassembling. Patching seams is tricky. It takes a really good eye, and sometimes I even like to have other people come in and take a look at it, because if I can't see a seam, that's fine, but I've been looking at it for a long time. So it's good to have a second pair of eyes to point out and say, hey, there's a seam there, you loser. But hopefully they don't call me a loser because I'm sensitive. I'm not. Okay, so what I do to meld those seams is this tool here. It's slightly tapered, it's metal, and I find it works really, really well on grogged clay. It's really convincing and it doesn't push around too much. It's smooth enough where it takes the surface and sort of helps hide those seams. So I'm just going to stroke the upper layer of clay, the upper piece, down into the second. And sometimes that method can create little air bubbles. So it's important to really get in there, make sure that air is released, and then go back in and cover your seam. It's okay if you have to do some digging, because if there's an air hole, you want to get that out. You don't want to leave it there. So do some digging, it's worth it, get it out. You can always repatch it. Even if it's totally dry, if it's not fired, you can absolutely just add some water to it, put it in a bag overnight, spritz it, let it sit, and you're good to go. But it is so much better doing that than just hoping for the best and firing your piece and then finding it in a million smithereens in the kiln the next day. So, and I've done that so many times and it sucks. But it's part of the process. I chose to be a ceramic artist. That's what happens. So as I'm melding these seams together, I'm scraping off that upper layer to excavate any air that's trapped underneath. So while I do that, it picks up a lot of extra clay like this. And so what I do is just really kind of try and compress it in like that. Yeah, there we go. And you can still see a seam. Look at that. You can still see. So that's why covering seams can be really tricky, because if the clay is too dry, that shit's gonna show and you're gonna see it. So it usually takes a few layers of compressing and then patching, compress, patch, compress, patch. It's good to do it in multiple layers if you really want to hide those seams, which I do, because this guy is not supposed to have seams. I'm gonna be a huge tech nerd right now and just ask Google what time it is, so no one make fun of me, okay? Hey Google, what time is it?
4:41 p.m.
4:41. Okay, I've got 20 more minutes. So I'm gonna finish up this seam. And if you're just joining me again, I'm doing a live hollowing demonstration with ceramic sculpture. I am a ceramic artist from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, currently in a demonstration with OpenArts MERGE in Busan, South Korea. It's 24 artists for 24 hours, and I believe we're in the last few, I think. But all of the performances so far, I believe, are up on YouTube. If you check out the link in their profile, you can see the rest of the performances. And it's really different from what I'm doing. Everyone's doing these really beautiful performances, like dancing or music or some sort of performative aspect, and then it cuts to me and I'm playing with mud. So I hope that's okay, but I really appreciate the opportunity to host with OpenArts. So thank you very much for having me. Okay, so the seam is still sort of there. You can still kind of see it, but I'm gonna go back later and really try and cover it up. You can't really tell, but it's not up to my standards yet. So this sad little guy is gonna sit off to the side while we hollow his butt. And this is his butt. Wow, he doesn't really have a butt. So this is how he looks. And if you're just tuning in now, I'll show you what the piece looks like in its entirety. We've already started hollowing it in sections, so some people who are just joining in now didn't get to see the piece in its entirety. So this is what the piece looks all together. And again, it's sort of my sort of loose interpretation of anxiety. It's a visual iteration of what I think anxiety looks like when it befalls a large group of people. So cities, villages, townships, communities. What does it look like when one emotion dominates a community? And I sort of see it as this overwhelming, mysterious, melancholy cloud. And that's kind of what I came up with here. But you don't want to hear about that. That's boring concept stuff. So we're going back to hollowing. And this is the next piece. So we're going to work on this. Unless you want to work on this one, which one do you want to see? This one or this one? Hollowing. This one? Deal. Okay. So we're going to take the base off. And this is our second last piece of hollowing. And the base is pretty flat, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it down. Oh, hi, Matt. How's it going, bud? You say, I think anxiety would look more like a spider. It's true. Anxiety would look like a spider. Because spiders are gross. But I also love spiders because they eat mosquitoes. But your anxiety can look like a spider. I get it. That's fine. Spiders give me anxiety when there's too many of them. I think I largely see anxiety as a gross. Hi, Jack. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. Anxiety for me is sort of this large mass, this dark sort of heavy mass that kind of lingers. And it's misty. You can't quite pinpoint it. It's transient. And sort of morphs its way into whatever it is you're thinking about. So that's my interpretation. So that's why I came up with this sort of large mass befalling the city. So we're just hollowing our last piece here for the demonstration. I have about 15 minutes left, I think. So we're going back to our border wall, just doing that preliminary line, digging that trench so I know exactly where I need to go and where I need to avoid. So we have the interior wall again, and then I'm going to take the bigger tool, don't use the small one, and we're going to start hacking away the inside. So if you're just tuning in again, I'm Katie, and I'm doing a demonstration with OpenArts MERGE in South Korea, 24 artists for 24 hours, and it's my turn. And there's been some really amazing performances, so I really, really recommend checking it out on YouTube. If you go to OpenArts MERGE, their profile page, you can hit up the link to YouTube and check out the rest of the performances. Oof. Oh, that's no good. So this piece out dried out quite a bit while I was talking, and it has definitely made it difficult to cut and to hollow, but that's okay. That's what sharp tools are for. Always sharpen your tools. So we're just going to go in, try not to push too hard on the base because I don't want to warp the structure. But I really just want to get the large pieces of clay out of here because the lighter it is, the easier it is to manipulate and work on. We have a comment from Sean. Oh, one of the staff from 24 Hour International Performance. Thank you for hosting me, Sean. Thank you so much, and thank you for doing the tech for this. We really, really appreciate it. And the other performances have been incredible. So well done, and thank you. And way to keep going. I don't know if you guys are staying up for 24 hours, but that's a lot. So kudos to you, and I really appreciate it. All right, so digging out that heavy stuff. Get out of here. We don't want you. And again, I do save this clay. I don't know if you see my pile here. It's my little clay pile. That's where the reserves go. And then I put them in water and I reuse it. Okay, flip. And we're gonna do that line again, just to make sure I don't go too far, too close to the wall. Consistency is important. I wish I knew how to speak Korean, because that would be so cool. And then I could communicate with the majority of the people who are watching. Unfortunately, I don't speak Korean. I don't even know a single Korean word, not one. I should have looked that up before I did this. This is my second time. I don't understand why I didn't do that. I should have at least learned the word hello. If someone can look that up, tell me how to say hello in Korean. That'd be really cool, and then I'll try it. I feel bad. I should have hired a translator. Uh-oh. Yeah, so see, my clay has really dried out, so it's starting to crumble a little bit, and it doesn't come out in a uniform piece, which makes it tricky to hollow. But we power through, because that's what we do. It's actually not that bad. I'm just being dramatic. And you can always spritz it down, resaturate it, get it back to the consistency you need, and go at it another day. It does not have to be all in one. But for the sake of this, it'll be really helpful. Okay, back to the big guy. And unfortunately, I kind of have to muscle this because it's hardened to a point where it's too difficult to come out smooth. Oh, look at that. It is nice when this happens. It doesn't happen very often. That's why I like to do a preliminary border, because sometimes it goes deep enough where you can pull out a full piece. This is just the full piece. I didn't have to do any extra digging. It's the little things. I really appreciate it. So that's what that looks like now. Yay. Oh, did someone post how to say hello in Korean? Let's see. Jack, did you do it? 여보세요. Is that how you say it? 여보세요? Uh-oh, what's going on? Oh, I screwed it up. This is why I can't have nice things. Okay, it says 여보세요. 여보세요? Yo. I'm probably saying it terribly. I hope I'm not butchering your language. I'm so sorry. 여보세요. That's as close as it's gonna get. Did I get it? Oh, I got it. Yeah, thank you. I did it. Next time I'll learn a few more words. If someone knows how to say goodbye, that'd be helpful too. Because I think I only have a few minutes left. Hey Google, what time is it?
It's 4:51 p.m.
4:51, I only have 10 minutes left. Okay. So I'm gonna finish up this piece, this little section here.
About 1 minute left.
Thanks, Google. Just gonna finish this guy up. We're gonna perforate it really quick. What do you want, Jack? What's going on? Oh, that's how it's spelled. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully I did it. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. I'm gonna have to look that up later and then apologize to whoever I offended for saying it wrong, because I probably said it wrong. That means hello when we call. Oh, okay, cool. That means hello when they call. Okay, cool. I learned a thing today. That's neat. Oh, this tripod is being a jerk. Sorry. All right, I'm gonna perforate this, reassemble everything, and then that'll be it. That'll be my demonstration. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna stab the guts out of this guy, so I'm killing all the air pockets that are left in there. So we're perforating, stabbing all the air holes, stabby, stabby. It's pretty fun. Until you stab yourself. That sucks. These things are sharp. Sharp, sharp tools. Okay, perforated. Thank you. I would love to speak more Korean. I wish I knew more. I'm gonna buy a book. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy a book and I'm gonna learn how to say the words properly. And I already forget how to say it. Yao busao? Yao bus? I forget. It's gone. My brain is a sieve. All right, so this is our base again. We didn't hollow out the whole thing because it takes a while, but that's okay. And then we put the mid frame back on, just so you can see what it's kind of gonna look like when it's done. And then the top. We're gonna try and align that as best we can. Oh, see, some warping happened. Uh-oh. That's what happens when you don't follow the advice you're giving. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so this is the piece. The seams will be finished once I'm finished hollowing. But that was today's hollowing demonstration. Thank you so much, everyone, for whoever tuned in. I really, really appreciate it. Everybody that came by and dropped me a comment, thank you so much. Everyone at OpenArts MERGE in South Korea, Busan, thank you so much for running this. We really, really appreciate it. And I hope everyone is really healthy and really safe, and everyone's families are safe, and that this ends soon so we can do some visiting and do some traveling. I would love to come to Korea and see all of you beautiful people in person. You can say 감사합니다 when you finish your performance. It means thank you for watching. Thank you, Sean. Okay, 감사합니다. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.